It was a bright morning, but the air outside the luxury car dealership felt heavy. Big Shaq stood there, staring at the shining glass doors. His reflection looked confident, but inside, his heart was racing. He took a deep breath, fixed his jacket, and walked in like a man who owned the place. Inside, the smell of new cars filled the air. Expensive engines, polished wheels, and lights reflecting off glossy paint. It looked like another world. People in suits moved around, talking quietly. Big Shaq smiled as if he belonged there. But deep inside, he knew this day could go very wrong. A salesman noticed him right away. "Good morning, sir. Welcome to King Motors. Looking for something special?" the man said with a bright smile. Big Shaq nodded confidently. "Yeah, I want something big, something powerful. Money is not a problem." The salesman's eyes lit up. "Of course, sir. Let me show you our newest models." As they walked between the cars, Big Shaq ran his hand over the shiny surfaces. Each car looked better than the last. He stopped beside a black sports car that looked fast, even when standing still. The price tag was more than what most people earn in a year, but Shaq didn't flinch. "This one," he said proudly. "I'll take this one for a test drive." The salesman smiled again, trying to hide his surprise. "Excellent choice, sir. I'll get the manager's approval." Big Shaq watched him walk away. He could feel the eyes of other customers on him. Some whispered, some smiled politely. He didn't care. For a few moments, he felt like a king, like the world was finally treating him the way he always dreamed. But when the manager came out of his office, things started to change. The man was tall, with sharp eyes and a calm but serious face. His name tag said Mr. Daniels, General Manager. He shook Shaq's hand, but didn't smile much. "So you're interested in the GT9? Daniels asked. "Yes," Big Shaq replied. "I want to test it today. If I like it, I'll buy it right now." "Of course," said the manager slowly. "We'll just need your ID and payment method to begin the paperwork." Shaq pulled out his wallet quickly, trying to look casual. He handed over some documents. Daniels took them and walked to his office to check them. A few seconds passed, then a minute. Then 5. Shaq's confidence began to fade. The salesman came back, still smiling, but his eyes looked nervous. "Just a moment, sir. The manager is verifying some details." Shaq nodded and tried to act calm. But inside, his stomach turned. He knew something was off. He could see the manager through the office window, talking to another employee and looking at the screen with a frown. When Daniels finally came out, his face was different. The fake smile was gone. He held Shaq's documents tightly. "Mr. Shaq," he said slowly, "I need to ask, how exactly did you plan to pay for this car?" Shaq laughed a little. "Cash or card, whatever works for you." "Interesting," Daniels replied, his voice firm now. "Because the account information you gave us doesn't match your ID, and this ID seems recently made." The room grew quiet. Even the salesman looked uncomfortable. Shaq's smile vanished. "There must be a mistake. I'm not lying. Check again." Daniel shook his head. "We take fraud very seriously here. I'm going to have to ask you to wait outside while we contact verification services." Shaq's hands clenched. His pride burned inside him. People were watching. A few customers whispered. His face turned red, not from guilt, but from anger and shame. He turned to the salesman. "I came here to buy a car, not to be treated like a criminal." The manager didn't blink. "Then I suggest you leave before this becomes something more serious." Shaq stared at him, breathing hard. The tension in the air could be cut with a knife. For a long second, no one moved. Then, slowly, Big Shaq turned around and walked out. But as the doors closed behind him, his eyes still burned with fury. Outside, he looked back at the dealership. His reflection in the glass doors looked smaller now, but the fire inside him was growing. He whispered to himself, "This isn't over. They'll see who I really am," and that was just the beginning. The next morning, Big Shaq woke up early. His mind was still replaying what had happened at the dealership. The embarrassment, the looks, the manager's cold voice. It all burned inside him. But he was not the type to give up easily. He stared at himself in the mirror and whispered, "I'll show them who Big Shaq really is." He dressed up sharper than before, clean jacket, shining shoes, and a new watch that sparkled under the morning light. He wanted to look successful. Today he was going back to the same dealership, but this time, he planned everything carefully. When he reached the showroom, the same salesman saw him and looked surprised. "Mr. Shaq, you're back?" Big Shaq smiled confidently. "Of course, I told you I'm buying that car. I don't quit just because someone doubts me." The salesman's nervous smile returned. "That's great to hear, sir. Let me call the manager again." As Big Shaq waited, he walked around the cars like a movie star. Every step, every look was full of pride. People stared at him and he loved it. He stopped beside a new luxury SUV, shiny black, with red leather seats and a strong engine. "This one looks better," he said to himself. "Maybe I should buy this instead. Bigger, louder, stronger, like me." The manager, Mr. Daniels, appeared again, walking slowly, eyes sharp as ever. "You came back," he said, his tone calm but curious. "Yes," Shaq replied. "I think yesterday was just a misunderstanding. I've brought new documents and a better offer." He placed a folder on the desk. Inside was everything: a clean ID, a bank statement, even a check. Daniels looked through the papers, still suspicious but more interested now. "Well," he said after a pause, "these look better. If this is real, we can move forward." "It's all real," Big Shaq said proudly. "I told you I don't play games." Daniels nodded slowly. "All right, let's talk business. Which car are you looking at today?" Shaq pointed to the black SUV. "That one. The big one. It fits my personality." The manager almost smiled. "Good choice. That's our newest model. Smooth, powerful, and expensive." They sat down at the glass table. The salesman brought coffee. For a few minutes, everything felt normal, even friendly. Daniels talked about features, engines, and deals. Shaq listened carefully, nodding like a serious buyer. He wanted to prove he was not just a loud talker. After the discussion, Daniels said, "Let's take it for a short test drive. I'll come with you, just to be sure." Shaq agreed quickly. "Of course, let's go." The SUV's engine started with a deep growl. The sound filled the air, smooth and strong. Big Shaq smiled widely. "Now this is what I'm talking about." They drove through the streets. Shaq felt like a king again. People turned to look at the car, and he loved the attention. Daniels, however, stayed quiet. He was watching Shaq carefully. Something about him still didn't feel right. The overconfidence. The way he looked at people through the window like he was showing off. After a few minutes, Daniels said, "You handle the car well." Shaq laughed. "I told you, I'm built for this. Soon, everyone will see me driving one of these every day." When they returned to the dealership, Daniels received a phone call. His face changed again. He looked at Shaq with the same serious eyes as yesterday. "Mr. Shaq," he said slowly, "the check you gave us, the bank says it's under review. It doesn't match the account owner." Shaq froze. "What are you talking about?" "That's my account." Daniels raised an eyebrow. "Maybe, but the bank says otherwise. Until this is cleared, we can't move forward." The air became tense again. The salesman stepped back. Shaq's pride was cracking. "You think I'm lying again?" he shouted. "I'm not thinking," Daniel said firmly. "I'm sure something's wrong, and I won't let it slide this time." Shaq slammed his hand on the car's hood. The sound echoed through the showroom. Everyone turned to look. Daniels stood tall, not moving an inch. Shaq's eyes burned with anger, but deep inside, he also felt fear. Everything was slipping again. He wanted to scream, but instead he whispered, "You'll regret this, Daniels. You really will." And with that, the storm inside him began to rise again, one that was only getting started. The air inside the dealership was thick with silence. Every eye turned toward Big Shaq and the manager, Mr. Daniels. The loud echo of Shaq's hands slamming the car still hung in the room. Salesman froze. Customers pretended to browse, but their ears were sharp. Everyone could feel the storm coming. Big Shaq stood tall, breathing heavily. His face was red, his jaw tight. Mr. Daniels, calm as ever, adjusted his tie and said, "There's no need to make a scene, Mr. Shaq. Let's step inside my office and talk." Shaq laughed sharply. "Talk? That's what you said yesterday, before calling me a liar? You think I'm stupid?" Daniel's voice dropped lower. "If you continue shouting, I'll have to call security." The words "call security" hit Shaq's pride like a hammer. He felt the blood rush to his head. Still, he followed Daniels into the glass office, his shoes clicking loudly on the floor. Everyone watched, whispering inside the office. Daniels closed the door. The room was quiet, except for the ticking of a wall clock. He placed Shaq's documents on the desk. "Sit," he said calmly. Shaq stayed standing. "Say what you have to say," at Daniel's side. "Your check was flagged by the bank. It's not in your name. You say it's yours? Then prove it." Shaq crossed his arms. "You think I'd walk into a place like this and lie? Look at me. Do I look broke to you?" Daniels didn't even look up. "Looks don't pay for cars, Mr. Shaq." The insult stung. Shaq's voice rose. "You're judging me because of how I talk, how I look? You think I can't afford your fancy cars?" Daniels finally looked up. His eyes were cold. "No, Mr. Shaq. I think you're pretending to be someone you're not." That line was too much. Shaq slammed his fist on the table. The papers jumped. The coffee cup shook. "Watch your mouth," he said in a low, dangerous tone. Daniels didn't move. He stood, face to face now. "Are you threatening me in my own office?" Shaq took a step closer. "I'm warning you. You don't know who you're talking to." Outside the office, a few workers began to gather near the glass wall, watching nervously. The salesman who had helped Shaq earlier whispered to another, "This is going to end badly." Inside, Daniels pressed a button on the desk, a quiet signal to security. "I think this conversation is over," he said. Shaq's voice cracked with anger. "I came here to buy a car, not to be treated like dirt. You should respect your customers." Daniels pointed at the door. "Then act like one." Shaq's fists tightened. His breath came fast. "You're going to regret this, Daniels." The door opened behind him. 2 security guards stepped in. "Sir, please calm down," one said gently. Shaq turned around. "Don't touch me." Daniels walked out from behind his desk, keeping his distance. "Escort him out. Now." One guard touched Shaq's arm, and Shaq pushed him away. "I said, don't touch me," he shouted. The second guard stepped in, and suddenly, there was movement everywhere. The struggle had begun. Shaq tried to pull free, but the guard grabbed his jacket. Daniel shouted enough and stepped closer. In that heated second, Shaq turned toward him, eyes wild. Daniels, losing patience, shoved Shaq hard in the chest. Shaq stumbled back, hit the chair, and before anyone could react, he lunged forward again. The guard tried to hold him, but Shaq's elbow hit Daniels' arm, and that was it. Daniels reacted with pure instinct. His fist came up and landed, but square on Shaq's face. The punch echoed through the room like thunder. Shaq froze for a moment, shocked more than hurt. His eyes watered from rage. The guards quickly pulled him back, dragging him toward the door. Customers gasped. One woman covered her mouth. A young man recorded the scene on his phone. Daniels stood still, breathing hard, his tie slightly loose. Shaq shouted as the guards pulled him outside. "This isn't over. You'll pay for this, Daniels. You'll all see." The glass doors swung open, and they threw him out into the sunlight. He stumbled, caught himself, and turned to look back. Through the glass, Daniels stood watching, cold and unshaken. Shaq's face was red, his lip bleeding slightly. People walking by on the street stopped and stared. He wiped his mouth and looked at the dealership sign shining above the doors. "King Motors," he whispered. Voice low, but full of fire. "Kings fall too." Then he turned and walked away slowly. The sound of the crowd fading behind him, but inside his mind, a new plan was already forming. The fall had started, but the comeback was on its way. The sun was bright, but for Big Shaq, the world looked dark. He stood outside King Motors, his jacket torn, his lip bleeding, and his pride shattered. People on the street slowed down to look. Some whispered. Others laughed quietly. His chest rose and fell fast, filled with anger and shame. He touched his face and saw a bit of blood on his fingers. The punch still burned. The glass doors behind him reflected his broken image, messy hair, red eyes, and a face that once looked confident, now looked lost. He wanted to scream, but he stayed silent. The sound of the city swallowed him whole. A small group of people stood nearby, watching. One man held up his phone, still recording. "Hey, that's the guy who got kicked out," someone said. The words hit Shaq harder than the punch. He turned away quickly, trying to walk, but his legs felt heavy. He found a quiet alley nearby and sat down on the curb. His body hurt, but his heart hurt more. Everything replayed in his mind. The manager's voice, the laughter, the camera phones. He buried his face in his hands and whispered, "How did it come to this?" He had dreamed of owning a luxury car his whole life. It wasn't just about money. It was about respect. Growing up, people never took him seriously. They called him loud, fake, a dreamer. He wanted to prove them wrong, to show that he could rise high. But now, it felt like the world was laughing again. A small breeze passed through the alley. A newspaper rolled near his feet. On the front page was a smiling businessman shaking hands with another man in front of a car dealership. The headline read, "King Motors expands to new city." Shaq stared at it for a long time. His teeth clenched. "King Motors," he muttered. "They think they can humiliate me and move on? No, not like this." He stood up slowly, wiped his face, and started walking. He didn't know where he was going. But one thing was clear. He couldn't let this be the end. That night, he went back to his small apartment. It was dark and messy. Old takeout boxes, unpaid bills, and a broken lamp filled the space. He sat on the couch, staring at the ceiling. His phone buzzed. A message from a friend. "Bro, are you the guy in this video? It's going viral." Shaq's heart dropped. He opened the link. The video showed the exact moment the manager punched him. The comments were cruel. "Fake rich guy gets what he deserves. He walked in like a boss, walked out like a joke. Lesson: don't mess with King Motors." Shaq threw the phone on the table. He felt his blood boil again. But after a few minutes of silence, something changed in his eyes. The anger started to turn into focus. "Fine," he whispered. "If they want to make me famous for falling, I'll make them watch me rise." He walked to the small mirror on the wall and looked at himself. The cut on his lip was drying now. His reflection looked stronger somehow, like a man ready for war. Then his phone rang again. It was an old friend, Rafi, who ran a small car garage in the city's old district. "Bro, I saw what happened," Rafi said. "Forget them. Come work with me for a while. You've always had charm, use it. Let's build something of our own." Shaq didn't answer right away. He looked around his room. Small, empty, silent. Then he smiled for the first time all day. "You know what, Rafi? Maybe that's not a bad idea." He ended the call and sat down with a pen and paper. For the first time, he didn't think about the humiliation. He thought about the future. He began writing ideas. Own a business. Start small. Use what I learned. Show them. Outside, the city lights flickered. Somewhere in the distance, the sound of cars echoed through the night. Big Shaq leaned back, eyes full of fire again. "They threw me out," he whispered, "but they just threw me into my destiny." And as the clock struck midnight, a new version of Big Shaq was born, one who had lost everything, but was ready to take it all back. The night was quiet, but Big Shaq's mind was loud. Ideas rushed through his head like traffic in the city. The humiliation at King Motors was still fresh, but now it was fuel. He sat on his small couch with papers spread across the table, plans, numbers, sketches of cars, even a name he had written in bold letters, Shaq Auto Works. He looked at the name and smiled slightly. If they can build an empire, so can I, he whispered. The next morning, he met Rafi at his small garage on the city's edge. The place smelled of oil, metal, and hope. Rafi was wiping his hands with a rag when Shaq walked in. "You actually came," Rafi said, smiling. Shaq nodded. "I'm done being laughed at. I want to do something real." Rafi pointed at a broken car nearby. "Then start by fixing that. If you can make that old machine run again, you can fix your life too." Shaq laughed a little. Challenge accepted. For days, he worked silently. His hands got dirty, his clothes got greasy, but his mind stayed sharp. He watched Rafi fix engines, clean tires, and talk kindly to customers. Shaq realized something: respect wasn't about looking rich. It was about showing honesty and hard work. In the evenings, when the shop closed, they sat on old chairs outside, drinking tea. The streetlights flickered above them. "You know," Rafi said one night, "you've got personality. People remember you. Maybe use that online. Post videos. Talk about cars, life, whatever." Shaq looked up. "Me videos?" "Yeah," Rafi said. "Why not?" "You've got the energy. Make people laugh. Tell them what you learned." That night, Shaq couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Rafi's words. By morning, he had made a decision. He borrowed an old phone stand, cleaned up a small corner of the garage, and recorded his first video. The camera started rolling. Shaq looked straight into the lens and said, "They laughed when I fell." But this is where real people work, fixing dreams one car at a time. He didn't expect much. But when he posted it online, something strange happened. People started watching, then sharing, then commenting. "Bro, this guy's real." Finally, someone honest about life in cars. Respect. Keep going. By the end of the week, his video had thousands of views. Rafi smiled. "Told you, man. You've got something." Shaq felt hope again. He began posting daily car tips, motivational talks, funny moments with Rafi. He didn't try to act rich anymore. He just acted real. And people loved it. Soon, customers began visiting the garage, not only for car repairs, but also to meet him. "You're Big Shaq, right? The guy from the videos?" they'd say. He'd laugh and reply, "Yeah. But now I fix cars instead of breaking deals." Money started coming in slowly. They fixed more cars, painted more doors, and even built a small sign outside. "Shaq and Rafi Auto Works. Honest service, real people." Every night, Shaq checked his growing follower count. It felt surreal. He wasn't just repairing cars, he was repairing his image, his life, and his dreams. But deep inside, there was still one thing that bothered him: the memory of Mr. Daniels. Every time he saw a luxury car drive by, the image of the punch flashed in his mind. He didn't hate Daniels anymore, but he wanted him to see the new Shaq, not the angry man thrown out, but the man who rose back stronger one day. A customer walked in with a familiar car model, the same black SUV he once tried to buy. Shaq smiled as he worked on it, thinking, funny how life circles back. When the customer left, Rafi said, "You know, you've changed, bro. You're calmer now." I had to fall to understand what real strength means. That night, as the garage lights turned off, Shaq stood outside looking at the city lights. His phone buzzed with a new message from a car magazine. "We'd love to feature your story, from humiliation to hustle." He looked up at the stars and smiled. Looks like the comeback has just begun. And deep down, he knew this was not the end of his story. It was only the beginning of something much bigger. A year had passed since that unforgettable day at King Motors. The world had changed. And so had Big Shaq. The man who once stood outside a dealership, broken and humiliated, was now the proud owner of Shaq and Rafi Auto Works, a small but famous car business that had become a symbol of honesty and hustle. Every morning, Shaq arrived early, wearing a clean blue jumpsuit with his name stitched on it. No fancy jacket, no fake smile, just confidence and purpose. The garage was busy from dawn till dusk. Customers trusted him, not because of money, but because he was real. Outside the shop, a big board read, "We fix cars, we fix trust." People loved it. His videos had now reached millions of views. Reporters came, influencers visited, and his story was shared across the internet. What started as a small comeback had turned into a movement, a story about rising after falling hard. One afternoon, Shaq was tightening a bolt on a car engine when Rafi called out, "Bro, someone's here to see you." "Looks important." Shaq wiped his hands and looked up. Standing at the entrance was a man in a suit, clean, polished, confident. For a second, Shaq didn't recognize him. But then he saw the face he could never forget. Mr. Daniels, the man who had punched him. The man who had thrown him out. The man who had started it all. Daniels walked in slowly, looking around the garage. "So this is the famous Shaq and Rafi Auto Works," he said quietly. His voice didn't carry arrogance this time. It carried something else, respect. Maybe even regret. Shaq stood still for a moment. "Didn't expect to see you here," he said calmly. Daniels nodded. "I don't blame you. You probably hate me." Shaq didn't reply. He just looked at him, waiting for the reason. Daniels sighed deeply. King Motors shut down 2 months ago. Sales dropped. Customers left. Bad reputation, bad management, it all fell apart. "I lost my job last week." Shaq blinked slowly, taking in every word. He remembered how powerful that man once looked. Now, his eyes seemed tired. "I saw your videos," Daniels continued. "You turned your pain into something real. Something good. I came here to ask. If you're hiring..." The words hung in the air. For a moment, no one spoke. Even Rafi, standing nearby, looked shocked. Shaq smiled faintly. "You want to work for me?" Daniels nodded. "Yes, I know I don't deserve it. I was wrong about you, but I need a second chance." Walked closer. The sound of his boots echoed softly on the concrete floor. He looked Daniels in the eyes and said, "You taught me the hardest lesson of my life. You broke me. But that's what made me stronger. I don't hate you for it." Daniels looked surprised. Then, Shaq smiled. "I don't punch people, Mr. Daniels. I help them rebuild." He extended his hand. Daniels stared at it for a long second, then slowly shook it. It wasn't just a handshake. It was forgiveness, redemption, and a full-circle moment. Rafi grinned from the corner. "Looks like life just pulled a U-turn," he said. They all laughed softly. The tension melted away. That evening, as the sun went down, Shaq stepped outside the garage and looked at the glowing city lights. Cars rushed by, their headlights shining like stars. He took a deep breath, feeling peace for the first time in a long time. His phone buzzed another message. This time from a big car company offering a partnership deal. They wanted Shaq and Rafi Auto Works to collaborate on a new campaign. Real people, real cars. Shaq laughed, looking up at the sky. From being thrown out to being invited in. "Life's funny, huh?" Rafi joined him outside. "You did it, bro." "You really did it." Shaq nodded. "We did it." He looked back at the garage where Daniels was helping a young mechanic fix a tire. Everything felt different now, brighter, calmer, earned. Big Shaq smiled and whispered, "Sometimes getting kicked out is the best way to find your way in." The camera fades as he walks back inside. Laughter filling the air, and that's how the man who once fell became the man everyone looked up to.